data-driven and objective. It's a comparative guide to help us compare projects throughout the state. It incorporates local input from our local officials, from legislators, from general citizens, and it is similar to approaches from other states. In addition, we've actually been able to share this process with other states. And at the heart of it, a key element is that it's structured to be transparent and defensible. Just to give you a little bit of background as well, SHIFT provides a mechanism to inform priorities for various types of projects, including safety improvements, road widening, reconstruction, new interchanges, and new routes. But that does not replace the prioritization processes that were already in place for other types of projects, such as rural municipal aid, MPO dedicated projects, other federally dedicated projects like safety, bike ped, congestion, or our maintenance projects or asset management, including bridges and pavements. SHIFT looks at 5 components to compare the needs across the state. Those 5 components are safety, asset management, congestion, benefit cost, and economic growth. Just to give you a little bit of background on what each one is looking at, the safety component, we're comparing a route's previous 5 years of crash performance and characteristics of the roadway, including grade, width, curvature, things that make the road. Next, for asset management, in an interest of making sure our dollars are spent efficiently, we consider projects that also have pavement, bridge, or recurring maintenance needs, so that we can kill as many birds as we can with a single stone. Next, congestion, that aids in identification of persistent capacity needs on the network. Our benefit cost, we compare the value of the expected travel time savings as well as safety improvements against the cost to implement that solution. And finally, economic growth. With that component, we're estimating a project's economic benefit at a countywide level. Additionally, this gauges the significant improvement to the mobility of freight, which of course is the economic lifeblood of an area. Through SHIFT, we have 2 levels of evaluation. First is the statewide, in which we use 100% quantitative evaluation. And with this, we have those 5 components weighted as seen: safety 25%, congestion, economic growth, and benefit cost, each at 20%, and asset management at 15%. After our statewide evaluation, we move to the regional, which is very similar. The weights are slightly reduced with a maximum of safety of 20%. And there's 2 additional inputs. Numbers disappeared, I apologize, but 2 other components are the local input, where we look at local priorities from the KYTC district, as well as local priorities from the area development districts or MPOs. This is a critical, important to get these boosts from our local planners, and we'll talk a little bit more about that momentarily. Now to get into the schedule. The SHIFT process, we began back at the first of the year by identifying needed projects through our local planners. Next, we need to narrow that list down to a manageable number, and you'll see why based on the number that were identified through the projects phase. Next, we review and score projects using the quantitative measures. Then we take those projects that are on the national highway system or our arterial network, and we narrow that down to a list of statewide priorities. The balance of those projects we send out to our regional planners to incorporate the boosting aspect, which is what we're starting today. And from there, we'll combine the boosts and the qualitative, or the quantitative and the qualitative, which is the boost, to help inform the recommended 6-year highway plan. So just a little bit of background on each step. The project cycle, which went through March 1st of this year, we identified almost 4,000 projects totaling over $70 billion. That's a lot of projects and a lot of dollars. And so our first step was try to then narrow that down to a more reasonable number. So between that and May, we identified the 1,200 projects, approximately 1,200 projects, totaling about $24 billion. And that is the projects that we put through the shift process to identify the qualitative scores. Next step was the statewide priorities, which we just completed. The number of projects that were identified as on the national highway system, we had 275 projects totaling $11 billion. And out of that, as we have in the last few cycles, we identified the interstates and parkways, and we set those aside as projects that would incorporate up the statewide priorities. This includes $7 billion worth of projects out of those 52. And that does include the two projects, the one for the Brent Spence and I-471 up in Northern Kentucky. So that brings us up to project boosting, which my colleagues in planning are going to distribute today. And that continues through September 24th. This is a collaborative process where districts and local planners compare notes and priorities, seek input from all areas of the area, including citizens, local officials, and yourselves as legislative representatives. This project boosting contributes 30% toward the final score. A successful boost will not make a bad project good, but it will make a fair project attractive at the end of the day. So we talked before about opportunities for legislative members to get involved in the shift process. And as we're kicking off the project boosting, this is an excellent time for yourselves, the local officials, or your constituents to get involved and identify those elements that may make a project special. And we've asked our local planners to coordinate and to respond back with their boosts by September 24th. Note that doesn't mean that some of those meetings may be as early as next week, or it could be some at the end of this week. So we encourage everyone to reach out to the local planning organizations to identify when those meetings will be and how you can get involved with that process. So, Chairman, that's what I have to present to the committee today. Be happy to entertain any questions or comments.
Okay, thank you very much, John. We do have a question. Senator Webb.
Thank you, John. And, we appreciate the shift diagram and its application most of the time. I do feel, however, some local planning organizations are a little more amenable to our input, and some districts more than others. I mean, we are the appropriators of revenue. We are charged with the distribution of tax money, and I feel very responsible for projects in my district and that impact my district, and as well as the rest of the Commonwealth. So I just always feel compelled to remind Transportation Cabinet of that, and the local planning entities. Like I said, I've got some great ones, but it's not real consistent throughout the Commonwealth in how we are included or accommodated, either by schedule, as things, I'm down here quite a bit. I'm 120 miles away. So, I would go one step further and say that the local planning organizations and the department should be more communicative and accommodating to our schedules as the appropriator of funds and revenue in the bienniums, to allow us to be an integral part of the decision making, because we're going to be the ultimate decision maker in a way here in the budget cycle. So I just think, especially for the newer members, that those planning organizations and department can be a little more accommodating to our schedules and a little more receptive to our input, because nobody knows our district and our needs like we do. But thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. You have any comments, John, on her? Any remarks?
We'll convey that to our planners. Unfortunately, a lot of the planning organizations, they set their own schedules based on the availability of many folks, but we will, as we have, continue to stress the importance of involving the legislators in the process.
Thank you. I'm just going to comment. I'm a transportation nut, and I'm constantly calling our county judges, our planning organizations. I mean, I do it myself, and I do get involved, and just like everyone else, your time's valuable. So if you want to get involved, make the phone calls. That's what I always do. We have another question or comment from Representative Roberts.
Hi, thank you for your time today. I have a question on shift scoring as it pertains to new projects. So can you talk a little bit about how the shift scoring may disadvantage new projects, specifically like around safety? You know, like the prevalence of accidents on a non-existing project is going to be 0, right? But as soon as we put a road in place, then we're going to obviously have some accidents associated. So it's my understanding that it's a little bit harder for new projects to get shift approval. And if you could talk a little bit about how maybe we could use that boost program to help get those new projects off the road.
Okay. So there are a couple different ways that a new project is not, it does have benefit because we, in lieu of ignoring it, since there is no crash history on that route, we identify an impacted route that the new project will draw traffic from. And we use the crash history as well as the various criteria about that route to help inform the shift score. There are aspects that do not get benefit. I don't believe it has a safety benefit because it's uncertain as to what the crash reduction would be of that new route, nor does it have asset management benefit because it's not taking any, it's not improving any existing pavements or any existing bridges. Through the, as you indicate, through the boost process, that's an excellent time to provide the local importance of a project. And that's through coordination with the local planners as well as the district office to ensure that it, through, as we call it, double boosting, it indicates support from both the district as well as the local planning level. So it's definitely something that can be overcome, but it is an aspect of the shift process that certain criteria, certain components are maybe slightly handicapped because it's a new route.
Very good. Like you commented early, safety is our number one. And if it's a safety project, I know in the past we've always more or less moved that ahead or pushed it forward because that's what we're really concerned with. Next is Senator Turner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've been delegated the request by some other senators and representatives to make it known to the Department of Transportation that the Mountain Parkway, the question of it going on through at the Johnson, basically Floyd line in there, that the senators Turner, Wheeler, and Smith, the representatives Lafferty, Hatton, McCool, and Blanton, which are all the representatives and senators in question in that area, are wanting the department to push through with that on to Floyd County through the mountain. We're all supportive of that. There's a position that one of the other gentlemen has, Mr. Blanton, but we will take that up as a separate issue. But we just want the department to know that there was some concern, and some of them brought it to my attention. So please pass that on to everybody in the department to get that thing up and running with this consistency of this group. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. If there's no other comments, questions, John, thank you very much for your time. Next, the road fund revenue. Robin Brewer, you're ready to go. There you are. Thank you.
I'm going to attempt to share my screen here if I can. Can you all see that?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. Okay, so, as the committee is well aware, you all have had to come back the last two legislative sessions and build 1-year budgets instead of a biennial budget, as we've typically done in the past, all due to, the uncertainty of COVID-19. And because of that, the consensus forecasting group, or the CFG, has also come in, multiple times outside of their normal schedule just to prepare revenue estimates for the legislative sessions and those 1-year budgets. So because of that, the CFG met back in December of 2020, and they came in to do two things, one of which was to revise the enacted revenue estimate for 2021, which was the current fiscal year, and then also revise the revenue estimate for 2022. All that for the upcoming legislative session in January of 2021. So during that December meeting, the CFG revised their 2021 estimate up about $34 million from $1,543,400,000 to $1,577,700,000.
Robin, excuse me.
Sure.
We just have the original page on the screen. Nothing's pages on turning.
Is it on? Is it showing the enacted and the actuals?
It's just showing Budget Review Subcommittee on Transportation.
Okay. How about now?
No, ma'am. My 12-year-old grandson's at camp, so he can't help us. There we go. Thank you.
Now, okay. I'm sorry about that. So, as I was saying, the CFG revised their estimate to the $1,577,700,000. So where we ended up for the fiscal year was actually $1,642,300,000. So that's an increase of 10.1% from the prior fiscal year, after last year's 4.8% drop due to a large decline in vehicle travel and sales due to COVID-19. So this increase has resulted in $64.6 million more than the budgeted estimate. Motor fuel tax revenue collected was $7.8 million, less than the enacted revenue estimate. Motor vehicle usage tax revenue collected, which is the sales tax on vehicle purchases, was $52.3 million more than the estimate. And then other revenues collected were $20.3 million more than the estimate. 5 of the 7 of the forecasted road fund accounts were above estimated levels. And $64.6 million surplus has been deposited into the road fund surplus account. So as expected, total road fund collections were tepid for the first 3 quarters of the fiscal year before taking off in the final 3 months of the year. Much of the fourth quarter increase was the result of depressed collections in 2020 as the pandemic severely limited economic activity. Growth rates for the 4 quarters were 1.9%, 0.7%, negative 0.4%, and 43.8%. Road fund receipts had a record-breaking fourth quarter with total collections of $466.7 million. This surpassed the previous high of $424.8 million from the final quarter of FY19. Revenues were $142.1 million greater than in the same quarter last year. Collections in the largest two categories, which are motor fuel and motor vehicle usage taxes, increased 24.5% and 80.9% respectively. It was expected that there would be a substantial revenue increase in the fourth quarter given the problems that we faced last year from the coronavirus. In the final quarter of FY 2020, receipts fell by just over $100 million as the effects of the pandemic effectively shut down the economy. The sharp increase in the fourth quarter of 2021 enabled total road fund revenues to end up the year 10.1% over 2020 totals. So comparing actual road fund revenues for 2021 to 2020, total 2021 receipts were $150.8 million more than 2020 levels. Motor fuel tax receipts increased by 0.9% for the year. They declined in each of the first three quarters and stood at negative 5.6% through 9 months as Kentuckians limited their travel and more people opted to work from home, before rebounding in the final quarter as people began to resume travel and return to the workplace. Motor vehicle usage tax receipts were strong throughout the year. Collections in this account grew by double digits in 3 of the 4 quarters, and revenues in this account reached an all-time high of $20.9 million. The surge in auto sales was aided by pent-up demand as well as federal stimulus payments. The $121.6 million increase in the usage receipts accounted for about 80% of the road fund's annual increase. Motor vehicle license receipts increased $16.9 million, while motor vehicle operators receipts rose by $9.1 million. Investment income fell by $6.8 million. The official enacted road fund revenue estimate for 2022 is $1,609,200,000, for which the budget was enacted in April. The motor fuel tax rate has been set again at the statutory floor for all of FY 2022. According to the quarterly economic and revenue report for the fourth quarter of FY 2021 from the Office of the State Budget Director, road fund revenues are forecasted to return to a more normal growth pattern after 2 years of large quarterly fluctuations. It is estimated that revenues will grow 4.6% over the first 9 months of FY 2022. Motor fuel tax receipts are expected to increase 6.2% over the first 9 months of FY 2022. The shift from the work-at-home model to a return to the office for many workers should propel the demand for gasoline with more commuter travel. In addition, pent-up demand for leisure travel accumulated during the pandemic should also create additional recreational travel. Motor vehicle usage taxes are forecasted to increase 2.8% over the first 3 quarters of FY 2022. While collections in this account were extremely strong in 2021, and expectations are that automobile sales will cool off, receipts in this account are still anticipated to increase through the first 3 quarters of the year. Motor vehicle license fees are expected to increase 1.3%. Weight distance taxes are expected to grow 7.6%. Motor vehicle operators licenses are forecasted to rise 11.1%. And the other categories expected to increase 0.6%. And so this is a slide that I believe you all have seen before. I've shown this before in other committee meetings. It's just a historical view of total road funds by fiscal year. It goes from 2011 to 2021. And it just really kind of shows a lot of what we've talked about over the years. You know, we've talked about the reference to FY14, which was before we started to have a gas tax decline. That actually occurred in the last quarter of FY15, but we really didn't feel the impact of that until FY16. And you can see that in the in the numbers there. We've talked about in FY19, it took us 5 years, but we finally got back up to our FY14 revenue levels. And then obviously COVID hit. So, again, you can see that for 2020. And then our most recent year of 2021 being a very strong year. Again, as I mentioned earlier, we still are at the statutory floor for the gas tax. This will be the 7th full fiscal year where we've been at the statutory floor. And so, a lot of the increases that we've experienced since the gas tax declined has really been in our motor vehicle usage tax revenue. If it had not been for that, it would be a very different situation. Of this $64.6 million surplus, $52.3 million of that was the usage tax. And it has just been beyond unprecedented levels, and we're very appreciative of that, obviously. But we know that's not a long-term growth that we can count on for any long period of time. So again, I just like to point that out to folks, and that really concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Robin, very much. Does any member have a question or a comment? They're just so overwhelmed with these great numbers that we're not having enough support. I just want to say one brief comment. Everyone in the news now is talking about some infrastructure funding that we could possibly get. Yep. Sorry, Representative Haberns has a comment.
Thank you, Robin, for the presentation. Even though the numbers are looking good, I still feel that there's still a lot of talk for a usage tax. Is that something, I think that a lot of us looked for the administration to come out with last session. Is that something you all look to do this upcoming session?
Are you talking about a motor fuels tax? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Well, I think our stance has always been we're supportive of whatever the need is out there. I mean, we've always said we'll do with whatever we have. We'll do the best we can with whatever we have. But, the gas tax, again, has been flat for 7 years. And construction prices are going up. Everything is costing more. So it's becoming increasingly more difficult, to meet those demands. So.
I appreciate that, Robin, and that's probably more of a question for Secretary Gray or the governor. But I think just kind of to make a comment to be on the record in here, I think it's important that we all work together and all sides come together to have this conversation and to move forward rather than putting it on one person or one body to make the decision. As we see construction rates and everything is skyrocketing right now. And until we're actually going to be serious about having this conversation, it's great for us to see numbers, but, I think it's a joint conversation we all need to have. That's not necessarily for you, Robin. That's just more of a comment. So thank you so much.
Thanks for the comment. Representative McPherson.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Robin, I appreciate what you said about the $52 million of the motor usage tax here. I think that's a product of supply and demand. I think you had used vehicles go up greatly in price because you didn't have the supply chain. The supply chain got cut. So that's probably a one-time bump. But if we get the vehicles that are sitting all around the state of Kentucky back on the market for our chips, then if those new vehicles hit the market and we sell new vehicles, that could be a 3 or 4 year bump because those will go on at a higher rate and the blue book value will be higher. So I think there's a possibility that line could possibly even go up and continue its trajectory to go forward. And secondly, as we all talk about gas tax and usage tax, I think for sure we've got the appetite maybe in this forum to do that. But we definitely are going to have to look at electric vehicles. Our infrastructure package that the president was just talking about, that has a big infrastructure part of charging stations. We're going to see electric vehicles here. We're going to have to put some kind of tax and fee on that going forward. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I was starting to comment earlier about what Congress is doing with an infrastructure package, and whatever you hear, it's money coming from D.C., but we will probably have to do a match, and it could be up to 20% match. So the legislative body is the one who has to enact appropriations. So we don't want that money to go to Montana, Wyoming, and California. We need it in Kentucky. So that's just my comment on that. If no one else has a comment, we will take a motion to adjourn. So moved. We are now adjourned. Thank you all for your time.